Welcome to Mission Imperfect, the podcast about finding your own path, your own way, and embracing the imperfection of the journey.
We're your hosts, life coaches, former HR professionals, and mums, Kirsty and Catherine.
We love to discuss the topics that come up time and time again for our coaching clients and which affect us all, from things like acceptance and boundaries to values and well-being and everything in between.
Each episode ends with a question for you and us to reflect on. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to grab a cuppa and a biscuit and join us in getting lost in finding ourselves.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Mission Imperfect. So we have a slightly different episode for you today. Kirsty and I realised it is now April and we have been recording and sharing our episodes of Mission Imperfect now for 6 months. And we thought we should acknowledge that milestone, didn't we, Kirsty?
Absolutely. I mean, it was just a chance realization in conversation, wasn't it? That, we've been going for a while now, haven't we done well? And it was like, when did we start? And
Yes.
it was April. Was it the 16th? Our sort of
Yes.
introduction went out.
Hmm.
So yeah, a whole 6 months. And I think very, very often as coaches, I think what we see very often with clients and what we recognize in ourselves is that we don't often take the time to actually stop and look at our achievements and acknowledge them and celebrate them. And coaching is very much about moving forward, but moving forward is helped by an understanding of what you've been able to do in the past. When you realize, what difficulties and fears you faced and what you've managed to achieve, that can make a real difference to how you feel about moving forward and what you feel you can do and want to do. So we're going to take a little bit of our own medicine
Yes.
and
Well, we should
celebrate.
really, shouldn't we?
Absolutely. Yeah, walk the talk. How did Mission Imperfect come into being? How did we even start down this road, Catherine? Do
I
you
know.
remember?
I do. It's funny because we've been in each other's world a little bit, haven't we?
Yeah.
From various, I think, Facebook groups, particularly maybe a couple of sort of communities that we were both in. And I think we both sort of seen each other in there. We both knew each other were coaches. But then we realized we so often had such a similar viewpoint on something because we're in communities where there are other small business owners. It's not just about coaches, but we both are life coaches. And I always think it's intriguing to meet another life coach and see what their perspective is. Is it similar to mine? Because the truth is we can approach life coaching in really different ways, can't we? We're not in a regulated industry. So someone can call themselves a life coach, but actually, as we've touched on in other episodes, they could be more of a mentor and talk more about business or certain aspects. And I always think it's intriguing to see what another life coach's perspective is. And I think someone else had started to acknowledge that we sounded very, very similar, and that that maybe we should work together somehow. And I think I just said as a really throwaway comment one day, oh, Kirsty, we should do podcast or something. And it was I didn't even think much of it at the time, but the moment it came out, as we know with coaching, it's often when the thought comes out of your head, isn't it? Into the world, whether you've written it or said it. I thought, actually, I really like that idea. And I thought, I wonder if she'll be game, because it was, to me, it was automatically appealing to be doing it with someone else. And I thought, I already know that we have such a similar viewpoint, but there'll be enough that makes us different as well. So it definitely appealed to me. And I thought, let's see if she's game. And luckily you were. So.
Yeah, I remember sort of some joking in one of those groups around us sort of saying maybe we were actually just one person. Coach KB was just one person,
Yes.
and we didn't realize we were the same person. Um, yeah, when it came out, how about podcast? I have to admit, my initial reaction was just to laugh. I didn't think that was a serious suggestion in any way. And the whole me do a podcast. And then when you sort of said, no, really, why don't we do a podcast? And it was, oh. Oh, yeah, that's an excellent question. Why don't we? And
Yes. A very good coaching question there, Kirsty. Why not do one?
and it was suddenly happening. And I have to say, you have been the driving force. I mean, I think I've just sort of toddled along going, yeah, all right, then why not? What can I do?
I think there's a lot more to it than that. For me, what's been great is that we can brainstorm things together. You know, if one of us thinks, God, I'm not sure what discussion ideas I've got this week, someone the other one will say, how about this? And we're like, oh yeah, brilliant. And we both get to put our heads together and come up with topics. And well, thankfully, after 6 months, we've not run out. Let's see what happens over the next six.
We,
We'll see
we,
if we're
we
still
still keep
going.
talking, and we
Yeah, we're
still
still.
we can still keep recording episodes at the start, of which we'll go. We think well, this will be a short one, and 40 minutes later, we're still talking. We're
Yes.
yeah, we haven't
Maybe
quite
that'll
got
be the
that
bit. We'll
sorted.
just do we'll do lots of like 5 minute episodes instead. Something saying we're still going.
For me, that's a huge part of what drew me to the idea, and what I wanted from it. Because there's always when you have an idea, there's always what do I actually want from this? What do I want to do it for me? What's appealing? And that idea of being able to just talk about all this stuff, all the mindsets, is all have that chat with somebody else and share the things that I love to talk about and which have really helped me. That was what really appealed. How about you?
So it's funny. I'm not sure if a podcast was really on my radar. I think I'd started listening to an awful lot more of them and really enjoying them, but it hadn't really twigged, oh, therefore maybe I want to do one. I don't think it registered as a firm thought. In fact, if anything, I've been toying with the idea of writing a book because
Oh,
I think a bit like you, Kirsty, my love language is more writing. I'm
mm,
certainly not really a visual person. I don't really do videos, lives, reels. I'm not even on Instagram, for example. So writing is kind of my thing. And therefore that led me down thinking. I already blog quite often, thinking about possibly a book, but I also knew that's a really big undertaking. Is it necessarily the right time? And then there was something about a podcast that I thought, well, actually, I don't mind that. It's not quite as in your face, shall we say, as perhaps video. For me, it's not as scary as that, but it's also a means for someone hearing you talk about coaching, which I think is a step closer to you than just reading what you say about coaching. But the deciding factor was definitely the idea of, oh, in partnership. Oh, that sounds great because it won't just be me
yes.
doing a monologue where I know I can rush, I know I can stumble over my words, I know I'll forget things that I really wanted to say. Whereas in a conversation, it just feels so much more, well, natural. And I thought, oh, this feels comfortable. And the moment we thought, well, actually, we know we'll have lots of topics to talk about. Let's just have a go.
Mhm.
Let's see if we've actually got some things to talk about. So we did quite a lot of recording, didn't we, before we started? And it just was like we just rock up every Friday and just start chatting, really, wouldn't we, about coaching? And that's how we really got the podcast going.
Yeah, absolutely. And that idea of doing it with somebody else definitely put a whole different perspective on it. If somebody had said to me, "Why don't you do a podcast?" I would have dismissed it. I
Mm.
don't doubt that. But the idea of doing it with somebody else and having that encouragement and backup and the idea of being able to regularly have a bit of a chat and a giggle with a kindred spirit, what's not to love?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We thought, well, at least we'll entertain ourselves.
It doesn't
Like
matter
we'll
if
have a good
nobody's
catch up.
listening.
Yes, exactly. But
Uh,
having said all of that, it wasn't that we didn't have some concerns or worries about it. What were
gosh,
yours,
no.
Kirsty?
Oh, where to start? Yeah, so what were my concerns? Okay, as a coach, I feel a little vulnerable admitting this, but fear of judgment. That was my big concern and one that I've made a lot of progress on, but I did notice that what popped up straight away was, people be thinking, who does she think she is? Who am I to be doing this podcast? What are people gonna say about me doing it and think of me doing it? So yeah, a good chance to put a lot of my own mindset work and coaching skills into practice on myself there.
Yeah.
Um, and it's always good to be able to do that consciously. The tech and the whole idea when you said, okay, let's do this thing, it was kind of, okay, how? What where do you record it? What do you record it with? How do you put it out there? Do you have to become some kind of AV whiz and edit all this shit? And I don't know. I have no idea how talking about something suddenly becomes something that other people can listen to. How? And the idea of sustaining it. God, there is a long list here, isn't there? The idea is just being able to sustain an episode a week, because you hear about so many people who start podcasts and then, they're all dead keen and they're rolling out one a week, maybe more, and then the gaps get longer and longer and it fizzles out. And I'm sure I've heard stats, that it's like with starting a business, isn't it, about how many fail within the first year and so on. I don't I don't much like listening to recordings of myself. I mean, you've shared your dislike of having to do videos and things like that. I do them on social media. I actually had quite a lot of coaching from business coaches who were saying to get any traction on social media, you have to do this. And it took me a while, but I do them now. But I still don't like listening to myself. And then, well, obviously, there's that fear that no one's going to listen, or that they would listen, but they'd hate it. Is that enough fears?
I was going to say, I'm surprised you agreed to do it in the end, Kirsty.
I look at
No,
that and think, dear God, what was I thinking?
I know, but so it's funny because of obviously being slightly the same person, I did share many of your worries. I was thinking, okay, how do we actually make it happen and keep it happening? I did think it's going to be harder than I think. Maybe
Mm,
it'll be hard to sustain, that I'll need more knowledge and tech ability than I actually have to make it
yeah.
happen. But I think we decided, look, we like the idea of it. People do manage to do it. I think we knew. I think what I loved about it so much is when we landed on the name, which was your idea of Mission Imperfect, I thought, brilliant, because we're already caveating that it's going to be imperfect. So maybe it's okay if we don't nail all these things and we don't have, the really fancy intros and all that kind of stuff. Because I actually thought at the end of it, what we want to do is really share the message about all those topics that we know we come across with all our clients and that people just might take something away from. So I thought, I don't want to worry so much about all the fancy bells and
Yeah.
whistles. But then saying that and then actually doing it are other things. And we did sort of have to, well, jump through a few hoops, didn't we, to make it happen. But I think we're both quite stubborn as well. We both were like, we're not going to be defeated by the tech. We're going to work it out as simply as we possibly can.
And we did keep it simple, didn't we? And again, doing it
Absolutely.
together, being able to bounce the idea around and sort of reassure each other, that I think that really made a difference. And we managed not to overcomplicate it. I'm very good at overcomplicating tech, and I've been really pleasantly surprised about how simply we've been able to do it.
Yeah. But what about those other concerns for you, Kirsty? How have you managed to sort of, how are you feeling about them 6 months on? Let's put it that way.
Yes, excellent question. Um, yeah, the whole thing about judgment, I mean, I touched on that a bit already, but 6 months on, I can look back and say, I I am really pleased based on how much work I've done on that, how little power that had. It was like the voice came up and it was there, but it didn't stop me. And I can still hear it, shouting from where it's tied up in the basement now and then. But it's so much less of a problem than it used to be. And so it's just keeping doing that work, and it's keeping asking the question, what if people do say that? Well, what if? What does it matter? Who's going to die because somebody said that or thought that?
Well,
And
as Mel Robbins would say, let them, because
yeah,
we cannot control what other people think or feel or respond to things that we do, but we can know what our intention is behind what we want to do. And that was the other thing. We thought that some episodes people are going to be drawn to and others they're not. And that's equally fine.
yeah,
That people might just want to dip in and out according to what the topic is we're discussing each week.
absolutely. And I can acknowledge that. Yeah, some people would judge me unkindly, are judging me unkindly, will judge me unkindly. It's always going to be there, isn't it? But others will judge me positively. And the real truth here is that most people won't spare me a second thought.
Yes.
And that's quite liberating, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
So,
definitely. I think for me it's been a bit of a lesson in some patience because I am notoriously impatient. But I think we did it as a sort of, what did they say, eat the elephant? We did it a little bit at a time, didn't we? We're like, have we got enough to talk about? So we brainstormed our episodes and thought, yes, we do. So that's, one hurdle down, that we think we can sustain it.
Mm.
The tech, we just had to pick it apart, didn't we, bit by bit. I think that was the one that we both found the most daunting, but we listened to people. We thought, what will the regularity be? How will we sustain that? And how can we just make it simple? And I think going back to something we said at the very start, that sort of co-accountability has worked really well. Because I think if I was
Yeah.
doing it on my own, I think I might have found it a lot easier to perhaps let it slide, not record for a couple of weeks. And I imagine then you think, oh no, it's a bit late. Shall I stop for now and then restart later? And I think it's really nice that we have managed to find a way to keep going together. And like I said, if one of us is like, oh, I'm not really sure this week, the other one will have an idea, and we're like, yes, great, and we can both put our heads together and come up with something. So, so 6 months on, it's gone quite fast in a way, hasn't it? What do you think?
Yeah, it was, in some ways, it feels like we've been doing it forever in a nice way. It's become such a sort of feature of life in a very positive way. But yeah, on the other hand, it was 6 months. Wow. We have actually done it. We've sustained it. We put episodes out every week for a whole 6 months, and we've got more ready.
Yeah,
And it's and we've had our difficulties in doing it. Circumstances have changed, and our recording pattern has had to become very different. And and yet we're still doing it. It's become, it matters enough to us to persist and to address all those fears. I mean, even when we listen back to the episodes for editing and, writing show notes and stuff, I've actually found that I quite enjoy listening to us, which maybe sounds a bit strange, but I'll listen back to recording and think, you know what, we were right.
yeah, yeah. Sometimes I might think the opposite, but I also think, in a way, it doesn't matter. Like I said, there are times when we probably fluff over our words, probably say the wrong word, talk over each other sometimes, because we are human. But that's kind of the whole point that we're trying to make about our podcast. Don't let that fear of not being perfect stop you from doing something. That's kind of the whole
Yes.
point of us doing this episode, about reflecting back on what you have done, because it will influence how you feel about what you can do moving forward, which is what we're all
Yes.
about as coaches. So, this episode we thought was a real opportunity to talk about that moment in time when we're not always just looking forward, which we do spend a lot of time doing as coaches, acknowledging how far you've come. Because if we never do that, I think everything always will feel a bit of a struggle. I've still got so far to go. We could have easily sat here and thought, God, we've only been going 6 months after all this work, because we obviously recorded for a long time before we released. Oh my God, how has it only been 6 months? We haven't even hit the year yet, blah, 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 blah. Whereas instead, we've decided to say, how cool is it? We have hit 6 months from when we started, when we thought, not sure how we're going to get this off the ground. Like feel like a sort of bumpy spaceship that had a few stalls and whatever, but we did get it going.
Yes, we did. And what you're saying about that lack of perfection. I mean, when we were first talking about ideas and how to sort of frame the show, that idea of fighting against perfectionism was very strong for you. And I latched onto it very much. And the fact that we've got episodes where, Zoom has frozen on us at some point and there's a little gap, or like always happens in a Zoom conversation, we occasionally talk over each other and then do the awkward thing of both stopping and then both waiting for the other to talk. And it happens, doesn't it? But that is normal, imperfect life in all its glory. And being able to embrace that and say, it's okay, here we are.
Yeah,
We're doing our best, and that is always good enough.
exactly. So what we're saying is, allow yourself to celebrate being imperfect, but making progress, because that is what counts.
Yeah.
So I think we've got a couple of quotes that are really more about, I guess, an element of acknowledgement and celebrating achievement. So this one is Franklin D. Roosevelt. Happiness lies in the joy of achievement and the thrill of creative effort. And I
Oh,
really like that one, because I think I've said before, I don't really think of myself as a particularly creative person, but that's probably because I still think of creativity in very probably traditional terms like artistic ability. Mine is diddly squat. It really is. It's dire. I draw bad stick figures. I don't even know how that's possible, but I do.
We are the same person.
Well, so you say that, Kirsty. I think you secretly got a really creative streak, certainly when it comes to your designs for the graphics. I love those. Mine are very sort of simple and straightforward, and yours are really creative. But the point is, it's really nice to think actually this is a form of creativity, us putting this podcast out there,
It's
which perhaps rewind a little while. I didn't think I necessarily would have that in me, but actually it always goes to show we have more in us than we think.
isn't that strange how you don't see yourself as creative, and yet a lot of the thinking outside the box on how we've done this has come from you. I mean, I give you one little example is we don't have any kind of theme music, and I can remember I talked to another friend who has a podcast and which gave us a load of help on tech stuff. And she also talked about options for doing music and how to address that. And I was going down a rabbit hole of thinking about it. And he just calmly said one day, "Do we need it? I always find it a bit annoying." And it was, oh, oh no, actually, you're right. Here I am agonizing over what sort of music we should have or could have or want to have and how we go about doing that. And it's bothering me. And I don't, you're right. I don't even particularly like the music on podcasts. Why are we doing it? So that
Well, it's funny. It ends up for me. It's just a sort of signal as I'm waiting for it to start and it for it to end. To say I always find it annoying, probably not true. There is one that I really like though, and the music I really dislike. So it kind of bugs me. I have to fast forward it when the music. It's just to me, it's a bad choice. I'm just like, it's really annoying. Why would you do that? So I just thought, rather than us labour, because I could see it happening, that we would labour over the choice of which one it would be, how long
yes,
we would have it for.
yeah.
I just thought maybe we don't have it. I just thought let's not make an obstacle when we don't need one. And if we want to, it'd be interesting to see. Give us another 6 months. Let's see if we've put in some tinkly tinkly music at the start or at the end. But I think it's very clear. We just want to start talking about usually biscuits or something,
Wait,
hopefully a topic.
the best biscuit mention of the episode. Well done.
I know that's right. I thought, to be fair, it was an unconscious slip in, but they normally get a reference, don't they, in each episode? But anyway, we slightly digress. That also happens.
But
Do
another
you have
quote.
another? Yes, go for it.
Okay, so make the most of yourself by fanning the tiny inner sparks of possibility into flames of achievement. And that's from Golda Meir, I think the surname is Meir, it's spelled. But isn't that
Love that.
a lovely
Yeah,
idea?
yeah, I really like that. So we have a question for you, as we always do, and that is
Cool.
to consider a way in which you've stepped out of your comfort zone in the last 6 months. We'll give you the same time frame that we've had. How do you feel differently about it now compared to at first? And what is your key learning from the experience? Because we think it's important to do that. We could have easily just ignored this and carried on recording as we have done. But actually, why not share what it has been like for us? Well, warts and all, it hasn't all been smooth sailing.
No,
But we have persevered, we've stuck with it, and we are quite proud of what we have managed to do.
very proud. I'm going to up that quite to a
Agreed.
very, I
Upgrade, yeah,
feel
I
very proud
agree.
of us. And that's good. I mean, sometimes, this whole idea of not blowing your own trumpet can be a little damaging, limiting. Blow your own trumpet. If you've achieved something, recognize it, acknowledge it, and then use it to go on and achieve more of what you want, rather than allowing yourself to be scared of whether you can do it or not. Recognize that you've done scary things before. And if you can't think of an area where you've stepped out of your comfort zone in the last 6 months, I would suggest that maybe some coaching would help. But then I would say that, wouldn't I?
Yes. The thing is, yeah, like you said, because is that actually really true? Because I think sometimes we are stepping out of it when we don't even realize. Sometimes out of absolute necessity, we'll find that we
Yeah.
actually have to. But also, I think we just can ignore successful things and just move on very quickly, can't we? We can often hold on to the more painful or difficult
Mm.
experiences, but not really take time to acknowledge the good things, even the small things. I'm a big fan of actually saying it's okay to recognize and celebrate the small things as well as the
Oh,
big
too
things.
true. Yeah, it's those small things that become the big things. The big things don't happen unless you're doing the small things. So however
Yeah.
small it is worth celebrating because that's where it starts. And if you don't start, you're never going to finish. That sounded profound, but it's probably a bit nonsensical. Mission
We'll listen to
Imperfect.
it and see what we think.
We are living the Mission Imperfect ethos, and
We certainly are.
it's pretty cool.
Yes, indeed. So, on that note, we will leave you for another week, but we shall be back. You know, we've made this commitment. We said we've been going for 6 months, so we've got to keep going now. It wouldn't look so good if we were like, there we go, we made the 6 months and we're just going to stop. But
We
no, we
don't.
shall be back with another episode soon. Take care.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Mission Imperfect.
Please visit the show notes for details on how to contact us and for any resources we may have on the topic discussed.
Until next time, keep being imperfectly you. No one does it better.